everyone, today we are going to be doing a haul slash like mini review of the REM Beauty Wicked for Good collection. If you guys didn't see my video last year, I did get several items from the 2024 Wicked collection, and I just could not pass up this year's because there were a lot of really cool items that I really wanted to try out. So I did end up picking up a few more items from this year's collection, and I'm gonna go over all of them with you guys today. So I did not get everything from the collection, but I did pick up a few things that really kind of caught my eye. So I did end up getting the first item, which was the eyeshadow palette, and it was called the Aussian Forest palette. Then I also got the Elphaba makeup set, and of course I got the Glinda makeup set as well. So I am going to be doing more in-depth reviews and individual videos on both of these sets, so those should be coming out. I think I have them coming out for next week. So I'm definitely going to dive a little bit deeper into those videos next week, but I will do a quick little overview in this video. So if you guys remember from last year, they also did an Elphaba and a Glinda makeup set that had 4 makeup items in them. Last year, the price of them were $60 for the set individually. However, this year the prices did go up slightly, so these were actually $65 a piece, so they went up $5 each. So starting off with the Glinda makeup set, it does come with 4 makeup items. They're all full size, and this is what the inside of the box insert looks like. So you have a lip liner, there is a lip gloss, a blush stick, and a liquid eyeshadow. So very similar setup to their last year. They also had a liquid eyeshadow, a blush stick, but instead of a lip liner, they had an eyeliner. And instead of the lip gloss, they had lipsticks. So I actually kind of like that they switched up a little bit, but it does still feel pretty familiar. So like I said, I'm not going to go too in depth into this video. I'm going to do a whole video dedicated to these, but this one is the liquid eyeshadow. They call this one Bubble of Brilliance. Then we have the all over glow stick. This one is called I Come and Go by Bubble. Then this is the Glossy Balm lip gloss. This one is in the color Tap to Bubble. And then we have the lip liner in the color Toss Toss. And then really quickly going through the Elphaba set, all of the items are the same, there's just different color options. And this is what the inside packaging of this one looks like. So once again, we have the lip liner. This one is called Defy Expectations. This one is a blush and lip color, and this one is called Braverism. Once again, the lip gloss is in the color Wickedness, and the eyeshadow is in the color Elfie. So I'm super excited to get into those in the next few videos, so keep your eyes out for those if you're interested in hearing all of my thoughts on those products specifically. But today's main focus is going to be on the next product, which is the eyeshadow palette. So this is the outer packaging for the box, and it is called the Aussian Forest palette. And then on the back here, it has all of the colors and the names as well. And once again, there was a slight price increase for this compared to last year's palette. Last year it was $55. This year it is $60. So let's go ahead and get into the palette. I think that this one is really pretty, but we're actually going to do a little bit of like a compare and contrast with last year's palette as well. So starting off, the packaging is very different compared to last year's palette. I actually have it right here, but we'll get into that in just a moment. So this year, instead of it being a cardboard packaging, it is a plastic packaging, and it is a lot more compact in size. So if I compare the two, last year's palette was this one, and it was definitely a lot bigger, a lot bulkier, and it had kind of like that cute storybook kind of look to it. So definitely stylistically, I do feel like we have quite a big difference here. On the front, it is a little bit more of a simplistic design. We just kind of have these gilded butterflies in each of the corners. I do think the packaging is pretty, but I kind of feel like we lost a little bit of the whimsy with this palette compared to last year's. I just feel like art-wise, there's just a lot more going on, and I just felt like this one, the illustrations just looked a little bit more eye-catching to me compared to this palette, but I do like the actual setup of this palette more. And then also it does have all of the names here on the back. I do prefer when the shadow names are on the inside, but as long as they're on the packaging in some way, I will give it a point for that. So when you open up the palette, you'll see it's a little bit more kind of concise on the inside, I will say. There's not as much wasted space, which is one thing that I do give it a point for, because I like that even though it's still kind of a little bit of a larger palette, it's much more travel friendly and not as much wasted space. There are the same amount of shadows. There are 12 shadows in here. There were also 12 shadows in last year's palette, and there are 6 matte shadows and there are 6 shimmer shadows. So overall, I really like the color story of this one. I feel like it's very pretty, very earthy, very foresty, as the Aussian Forest name would suggest. I do feel like in the color story though, it feels a little bit more Elphaba themed than Glinda, which I'll talk a little bit more about as far as like the color story from last year's palette. However, I will say I really do like the color story overall. I think it's a really nice balanced one. There's no shades in here that just feel wildly out of place. And overall, I do think there's a really good balance of light to dark to matte to shimmer and all that. So overall, color story wise, I do really enjoy this one. Another really big thing that I love about this palette is this big, large mirror. I love that it takes up the entire lid space. It is usable. It is very large. You could use this to do like all of your makeup and be able to see everything really nice and clear. I hate whenever there are really dinky mirrors in a palette or no mirror at all, so I always appreciate a really well thought out mirror. So now that all the packaging is aside, I do want to do like a quick little comparison to last year's palette, so I will keep it pretty concise since I have already reviewed this palette. But like I said, it's much bigger than this year's palette, so size wise, here is what we've got going on. It's a lot smaller, more concise, more travelable too. But like I was saying, I feel like there's a lot of wasted space here and here. I feel like they should have either made the palette a little bit narrower or added more shades here, because I did kind of dislike the fact that there was so much extra space over here, because this is a pretty large palette to begin with. But I get they were trying to like do the book dimensions and all that, but that was one complaint I had. Color story wise though, I actually really like how they laid this out, because this is a very like Glinda inspired row kind of quad, then this is like a very Elphaba one, and then this one, actually looking back at it now, kind of reminds me a lot more of Glinda's like pinkish bluish era with the new movies, so I actually really enjoy that as well. So color story wise, I actually really like both of these. This one is, I will say, not as balanced between the shimmers and the matte compared to this year's, where we have equal mattes to shimmers. This one has 4 mattes and the rest are all shimmers. For the mirror for this one, I think it's very cute and goes like with the theme and everything, but I feel like mirror wise, it's not as functional as this year's mirror, but you could absolutely still like get the job done with this one. And the one last little point I will mention between the two palettes, I'm actually really surprised there's really not a lot of overlap colors. Truly the only color that I think are kind of similar from each palette would be the light kind of pinky tan color here. This one is called Confusifying in the 2025 palette. And I think that that one is a little bit similar to this one here, which is called Goodness Knows from the 2024 palette. Other than that, really all of the shades, even though there's still like pinks and greens and like coppers and things like that, there's no other colors that I feel like are super similar to each other. So I'm actually pretty fine with that, and I'm glad that both of the color stories, even though they both feel very like wickedy, I like that they both have their differences. Alright, so really quickly we'll go into the swatch portions. I will show you guys all of the shades in the 2025 Wicked for Good palette, and then I'll also throw in some swatches for the 2024 palette as well. That way you can kind of see both of the color stories side by side and decide that if you already have this palette, is this one worth it for you or not. So moving on, we're going to get into the application portion. I'm going to show you guys how I created my eyeshadow look today. So here is a closer look at the palette. Definitely different packaging as far as from last year's design. And this is the color story for this palette. So as far as all the colors on here, they do have names. So first off, we have Confusifying, Witching Hour, Festivate, Oz Teeny, Land of Oz, and Wickedly Wonderful. Then over here we have Take Flight, All Roads Lead to the Wizard, Oh Oz, Embrace Your Inner Green, The Grimmery, and Kiyamako. And if you're someone who really cares about the mirror being able to be adjustable and stay at the angle you put it, this palette does have that. All right, we're gonna start off our look with some eyeshadow primer. I am using the V Cosmetic eyeshadow primer. This is just the one I'm using for the week. So starting off, I think I want to go with the color Take Flight. It is that kind of like dark, muted, olivey green matte color. So first things first, when I dipped into it, there was a bit of fallout, so I'm definitely going to make sure I tap off my brush. That way any of that dark green doesn't get all over my face. And I'm going to start by placing this on the outer corner and blending that inward. I just want to really like soften and diffuse this color so it's not like crazy intense. So starting off, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really loving this color. It does seem to be a little bit on the patchy side, and I find that it's a little bit hard to blend. You okay, Popo? You scared me. Cats, man. Maybe it's just like the color tone of it, but I feel like it's kind of not really giving me what I wanted. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more green. But I'm really kind of struggling with getting this to blend out. It's just not looking that great. Okay, let's see if we can kind of even this out a little bit. We're going to take this matte brown. This one is called Kiyomiko, and I'm going to take that one, again, pick up some of that color, and I'm going to kind of blend it into the green just to try to see if we can kind of get a more solid, even blend. I just feel like that green is looking so patchy on my eyes. All right, next I'm gonna take Confusifying. It's just kind of like a light tanny peach kind of color. I'm gonna take that one and apply it under my brow bone just to kind of see if we can get a little bit more blendage here, because once again, I just kind of can't get this to blend as softly as I'd like. Okay, I definitely think that color helped kind of blend the outer portion a little bit, but I do have to say, working with that dark green first might have not been the best decision. Just let's go ahead and move on to the next few shimmer colors that are really gonna bring the look together. But as always, I will be applying a sticky eyeshadow primer to my lid first. I always do this with all of my eyeshadow looks. It really helps the shimmers have something to really like stick to, and it also helps them from transferring as much on my hooded lids. So I'm just gonna apply that right to the center of my lid where I'm going to be applying the shimmer shadows. And I feel like this is like the really hard part of trying to decide which shadows to go with. There's like this olivey golden color, there's this like minty green, there's this like deep green and gold swirl color, there's this pinky purple shift, there's this really pretty like silvery kind of gold, and then there's this really lovely like rusty kind of shimmer color too. So it's such a hard decision to make. But something in me is just really wanting to do this minty shimmer color, so I think we're gonna go with that one. And that one is called Oh Oz. So I'm actually gonna pick this one up with my finger. I kind of like doing my shimmers that way because I can really press it into the lid and it just kind of crushes all of the little particles and makes it like lay flat, and it makes it look a lot more shimmery that way. Ooh, that is such a pretty color. I really like this shadow formula for the shimmers because it's kind of similar to like a topper style shadow, except that it has more base color to it. It's not like a full-on foil, but it definitely kind of like gives you that effect without the super oily kind of wet feeling shadows. But it definitely has like all that sparkle, which is very, very pretty. Now I will go back into that Take Flight shade and I will pick that up on a pencil brush. I'm gonna run that on the outer part of my lower lash line. And honestly, I don't know if this is gonna be a mistake or not, but I just cannot not try out this shade here. That one is called Festivate. It's like that very Glinda purpley pinky blue kind of color, and I have to try it. So I think we're gonna do this as like the inner corner. So I'm gonna pick some of that up on my flat shader brush. I'm gonna put that right on the inner corner. It kind of has like that transparency, bubbly kind of iridescence that is so pretty. It's so kind of like subtle but pretty in the same way. Like when it catches the light, it just gives you like that little bit of like a bluey pinky kind of shift, which I think is really, really pretty. And I do want to take just a little bit of it and kind of blend it into the green, so it's not just like that stark like blue and green. Ooh, I actually think that's a really pretty kind of combo. A little bit different, but I like it. And then I'm going to do just a little bit of that same shade on the lower lash line, just towards the inner portion. And as much as I would love to just like keep piling on all these really gorgeous shades, there is a point where too much shadow will just look muddy. So I am gonna leave it here. I do actually really like this look. It has a very pretty kind of ethereal, kind of like fairy look, which I really, really like. But I'm gonna go ahead and finish off my liner, lashes, mascara, and I will come back and share more swatches with you guys and any other thoughts. Alright, and this is the finished look for the eyeshadow palette. Overall, I really do like this palette so far. I definitely still need to play around with it more because there are just so many colors I didn't get to use today. I really only used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 12 colors, so I definitely can't wait to play with these more. I will say the only shadow that I did have a little bit of issue with today was that Take Flight color. I just felt like this one was a little bit harder to blend. It did look a little patchy, so I just had to work extra hard with that one to blend. The only other one I feel like could potentially maybe have that same issue would be this darker, kind of like plummy gray one here. That one is called Wickedly Wonderful, but I haven't played with that one yet, so I'm not sure if it's going to have that same kind of issue, but I definitely did have to take a little bit more time to try to get that greenish color to blend out nicely. And like I mentioned earlier, I do really love the color story of this one. However, I feel like there's not as much Glinda in this palette, which I am a little bummed about. The only one that I really feel like is a Glinda color is, of course, this one here. And that one is the Festivate color, but really all the other colors either feel very Elphaba to me or just kind of like a generic kind of color. Like this one just feels very Tin Man. This one kind of feels like Cowardly Lion to me. You know, all the mattes could kind of be anything, but these three here definitely feel very like Emerald City or Elphaba coded. But I am sad to say, like, I really feel like this is the only Glinda color that we have in the palette. So I am a little bit let down by that, but otherwise, I think it's a very, very beautiful palette, and I am glad to have this one. So I do feel like we had a little bit more Glinda in this palette as far as like representation, but I definitely still really love this palette as well. For me personally, there is no world where I wasn't going to get both of these palettes. I'm just a huge fan of Wicked and a collector, so I was definitely going to get both of these. However, I will say if you are someone who either already owns this palette and you're not necessarily a collector, I do think that this one in a way does have a little bit less wow factor to me compared to this palette. But also I feel like this palette is a little bit more wearable compared to this palette. I mean, I think you can get away with both of them, but this one does just have a lot more of those shimmer shades and they're just so like foily and beautiful and over the top. This one does feel a little bit more like a mature version of it, but honestly, in my opinion, there was no way I was not going to get both of them. So for me, it's definitely kind of funny because I feel like packaging wise, I feel like they upgraded and downgraded at the same time, just because I feel like the look of the packaging isn't as pretty as this one in my opinion, but I like the form and the functionality of this one so much more. So it was just kind of like really the design that I was a little bit let down by with this palette. I just feel like it's a little simplistic, but some people might really enjoy that. I still think it's a very pretty palette, but whenever I saw it, I was like, you know, it's just missing something. It's just missing a little something for me. In the end though, I do really enjoy the palette. I think that quality wise, it's definitely up there with the exception of that one shade that I didn't quite like, but I'm definitely gonna keep playing around with it and see if I can find a way to make it really work for me. But at the end of the day, I am definitely very happy with my purchase of this palette, and knowing what I know now, I would definitely get it again. I think it's just really gorgeous. And again, with being such a huge fan of Wicked, there was no way I was not going to get it. Alright guys, so don't forget to come back next week where I will be doing the reviews on the Elphaba set and the Glinda set. I just didn't want to get too bogged down in this video alone, so each of these are going to have their own separate video coming up very, very soon. Alright guys, so that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on social media. Links are below. And until my next video, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.